Good evening. We're going to call to order the meeting of the Budget Review Committee. This is Thursday, April 10th, 2019, at 7 p.m. in the automatic chamber. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Clemmons is present. Alderwoman Shoshana Kelly.
Here.
Alderman Tenza.
Present.
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Okay, we have, go ahead, please.
Members not in attendance are Alderman Dowd and Alderman Wilshire.
And I would like to say that Alderman Dowd is properly excused. He had a medical procedure, is doing well, and we wish him a speedy recovery. And Alderman at large is out of town on important business, so both are properly excused. We have nobody else in attendance. Public comment? There is none. Communications?
There is none.
Unfinished business?
There is none.
New business?
There is none.
Okay. We do have one tabled in committee, R-18-102. And wait, I think this is, I do need a motion to take this off the table.
The budget are one.
Yeah, R-18-102, proven and cost items of the collective bargaining agreement between the National Board of Police Commissioners, Uniformed Police Officers, Local 645, professional employees in National Police Department from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2022, with an authorizing related transfers. It was tabled January 17, 2019. I think this is the one that went before the Budget Committee passed. I think I am a little bit confused myself. There were two pending measures. One was coming from the police department that was tabled and still is on the table. I think this is the one that was approved. If the committee is in doubt, I do not have any objections to keep it on the table. That would keep it in the safe. But looking at what the suggestion, and according to the minutes of the meeting, it seems that it's looking for a motion to take it off the table for discussion. Yes.
What was the number again?
It's R-18-102.
Okay, because R-19-125 is the one that we did yesterday, which was the police department at the full board meeting.
But seeing there's nobody here to explain it,
Yeah.
I think probably be best until we get additional information if we remain on the table. Okay, to keep R-18-102, I will probably just say, is the agreement of this committee to keep it on the table so nobody moves support? Very good. R-18-102 will remain on the table. To the clerk for a motion on R-19-123.
Yes, I would move to take from the table R-19-123.
Taken from the table, all to the adoption of fiscal year 2020 proposed budget for the city of Nashua, general enterprise and special revenues funds. We're going to have tonight will be telecommunications and information technology. And Representative, if you please come forward, state your name for the good people.
Do you want to vote on the motion?
Oh, yes, and maybe can we, oh, he can come up over to it. All those in favor to be moved from the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none? Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Bruce Cogno, CIO, IT Director for the City of Nashua. I'll give you a little background of my area. Have the Information Technology Group as well as Nashua CTV, the Public Government and Education TV. Have an excellent group of people. There's over 300 years of combined experience in information technology within the group. I got three teams within the IT group. Is infrastructure, a technical support group, and an applications development project management group. We have over 170 virtual servers that run all the city applications. We support all the 3,000 plus city users in schools, fire, PD, library, DPW, City Hall, that use the enterprise applications. We have over 180 terabytes of storage and roughly about 300 databases. Throughout the city, we have 45 miles of private fiber connecting the almost 50 city-owned buildings and locations throughout the city. We also support the traffic light and the traffic cabinets. Those are all connected via fiber as well. Our email service process about 2 million emails a year, and roughly 400,000 of them never make the intended user because they're spam. Our firewalls block 400,000 a year. On the Nashua TV side, we have 2 full-time employees and 7 part-time videographers. Give you a little background on how my budget is set up, or I guess the reason for some of it. If you go back to 2009, the Board of Aldermen authorized the engine project, which was a national government innovation, which wound up being a big spend, replacing all the technology and everything within the city. Some of it's still going on, and but with all those new projects and new applications and new hardware, comes with it maintenance and support. So between salaries and support and maintenance, that makes up 80% of my budget. Those are have contractual increases. With salaries and union agreements, they're roughly around averaging 3%. Maintenance is averaging 5%. You average those out as 4%. Trying to maintain a 1.8 or a 2% request is about nearly impossible, which means cuts. So what happens is we have roughly 140 PCs that are over 10 years old. My team does a great job in making that transparent to the users. We use SSD drives and increase the memory and other performance tools, but it's kind of like kicking the can down the road. There are applications that need to be upgraded. We've been going before the CIC each year trying to get some money to upgrade servers, upgrade storage, upgrade the applications. So essentially, our budget, we increase it little by little. This year, we have a little bit more of a spend for the IT budget. So if I go over the lines that do change, our software maintenance is going up $69,000 based upon contractual agreements. Hardware maintenance is only going up around $1,800. On what we call technology equipment consumables, that is actually all the printers and the printer costs. We put out metrics trying to, I guess, get people to print less, more for the environment. We put out reports based upon how many trees are destroyed, based upon how much you're printing. Trying to guilt people into not printing as much, but our printing has been on the rise lately, so I have $5,000 more in that line item for printing. In our computer equipment, that's where we do a lot of server replacement and PC replacements. It's increasing by $71,000. One of the big spends in there is actually for the police department, $65,000 for network storage. Their network storage became end of life in 2017 and drastically needs to be replaced, and they're moving a lot of things into document management and desperately need the storage. So the mayor was able to increase that line item to cover those costs. And then cellular line goes up based upon things we add on and we'll get to that when we do the telecommunications and the cellular. But the cellular line, we provide the cellular for the fire vehicles and the connectivity to those. And the fire marshals all have tablets now, which are also on data plans. So if you have any questions on the IT budget.
Any questions by members of the board? Seeing none, I do have one. Well, I'll concede to Alderman Clemmons. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. No, this is an extremely tight budget, especially when you look at it, from last year to this year. It's amazing that you can do what you can do with the dollars that you have. It's funny because, and I'm sure you don't want to get into the politics, but I do want to mention it because this is a department that largely didn't exist before the spending cap came around. So everything that's here, when that spending cap came out, right, it just adjusted the cost of inflation from what was it, 1994 or something like that. And so we're running on 1994 numbers in this city with an information technology department that is almost $3 million. And when you consider the fact that we've been able to do that, that's kudos to you.
Thank you.
So you're welcome.
I do have a question on the IT divisions. How many are there in the city?
I mean, within separate IT groups?
Right.
Schools has their own separate one, mainly because of, they create mailboxes and things for students and everything else, so they operate a little bit differently. The police department has a smaller IT group over there, and that's mainly because of privacy. I've had the conversations multiple times with the chief about that. If they open that up, they have concerns. They want to do background checks on everybody. So it's right to have them separate. So it's really 3 overall.
Okay, because what I'm getting at is you mentioned data storage,
Right.
which has a confidentiality
Correct.
absolutely to it.
Yep.
But it's now coming from one division into another division. Yet they are already appropriated with their, and maybe I don't understand it, and this would be a fairer question to the police when they come in and to ask them about their IT division and their capabilities and what they're able to do. But it seems like they're now coming to us and asked to accept some of
Right.
their, I guess, data that,
We collaborate quite a bit. I collaborate with schools and with the police as well. We have excellent working relationships. For example, the citywide telecommunications project that I brought to the city a few years back, I wanted to ensure that it was for the entire city, schools, fire, police, everybody, mainly because everybody needs it. And getting on the same platform makes it a lot easier, and common knowledge and everything else. We all work together to make sure this thing was very successful.
okay. Second question, if I may. I agree with Alderman Clemmons. We went through a period of time where we had an instrument that kind of stopped dead any type of repairs, infrastructure repairs, other things, because we were under a spending cap.
Right.
And whenever you're under a spending cap, don't think for a second something falls off the radar. It most certainly does.
Right.
Whether it's a street unpaved or something like that. And I look at IT in the modern sense, don't let the gray hair fool you. But I think in the modern sense, you have infrastructure.
Yep.
You're in charge of a very important part of how the city generates its revenue and tax collection and assessing and everything else. And we heard now with some of the things, I think you can agree, the assessing has been somewhat of a hot button issue and everything. Can you give us just an update? How are we? I mean, is our computer program adequate to serve our needs right now?
Yeah, I think everything we have works very well. We've had multiple discussions about the admin system. The admin system eventually will be going away. The only thing that's on there from the assessing standpoint is the abatement process. And it's been on there for years. It works very well. The current application that they use, Assess Pro, it works very good for the assessors. It's an excellent program for the assessor's point of view. Their Web Pro component, the one that goes citizen-facing, is not so much. It doesn't provide that much detail, that look and feel. It's kind of hard to use. That's part of the application, though. That's their newest version that they have is exactly the same. So it, we can upgrade that to the latest version, but it's going to be identical. So it doesn't really buy us anything. They're only upgrading more of the technology that drives the application, but the look and feel stays the same. But from a back-end user standpoint, it's an excellent application, and it serves the assessors well. It's not something that that if I was a citizen of Nashua, I wouldn't like having to use that, but we're looking at other ways of trying to see if we can provide that same information using something else. But that's something that is being investigated. So we don't really have any good answers right now.
Okay. All right, any further, Alderwoman Kelly?
Thank you. You were talking about printing costs, and I'm sorry if I missed the line item. Could you point that out again?
Right. It's on there as technology equipment consumables, which is an odd name for printing.
Yes, there it is. Okay. So my question about that, I actually had the opportunity to see some of that technology and,
Right.
and see what trees are being killed, which is it's unsettling. So we're paying for every single print that gets put out.
Right.
Okay. And you were upping it just because of behavior that you've seen this past year?
And some areas where we're hoping to get some decreases, but we're not. So I have been seeing an uptick in printing. You can't, legitimately, you do have to print, so you can't get away from not having paper for a lot of things. But we're trying to get people to think about it first. If you go to a meeting, one of the things we've done within City Hall is put in large screen TVs in every meeting room and a computer. So if you're having a meeting, we're trying to encourage people to either, come with a thumb drive and, email out the packet you have, presentation, ahead of time or afterwards, but bring it up on the screen and go paperless. People can take notes. They can still do that. So we've been trying to get people to think about using technology to reduce the printing costs, and it's slow, but like I said, we put out those reports more of a guilt trip to get people to think about how many trees and how much electricity is being wasted by printing.
And if I could, I mean, the Energy and Environment Committee wants to, work with you on that because we feel very strongly about that. And we're talking about reduction as an entire campaign for the year.
Yeah.
And we think that's an easy place that we can make change. One of the things that came up in the committee, and I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, was whether or not some things have to be legally printed per, just what's legal versus like being able to send you an email.
Right.
So we were sort of wondering around that as well, if it's habit or if it's necessity.
I think a lot of it's habit myself. I don't think there's too many that's necessity.
Thank you. We'll work on it.
Yeah.
I would like to compliment, many of us do have the little laptops, which has been, I can't imagine the amount of paper that gets generated that we see that, fortunately, we have the laptops that really helps us out and cuts it down and makes us a little bit greener.
Right.
Very wise choice.
Yeah.
Extremely wise. Any other questions by members of the board? And I think we kind of morphed into two different subjects. Did you adequately cover line item 120 to telecommunications?
Kind of touched upon it, yeah. There's two lines basically in that. One is
Exactly, but just to make sure
telecommunications.
that you do feel adequate with
Yep.
it. And if you can pause, and any questions on that particular line on 120 with the telecommunications on page 135. Alderman Clemmons and then Alderman Tenzer.
Sure. Can you just sort of break down what that $130,000 line is? It's flat from last year. I assume that's just landline.
The landline and internet. We have multiple internet
internet,
connections.
okay.
Right. And the reason why it stays flat is we negotiate pretty much every year with our providers on our network speed. And we're able to get the network speed up and keep the costs the same. So we've been increasing the speed of our network internet connections every year, but we've always been able to maintain a flat cost.
And this probably isn't you, but I might suggest we break that line up next year, so we get a better idea of what is, because it just says telephone voice, so.
Right.
You know, maybe, do you know what is it that do we do voice over IP? Is that?
We do. Right.
Okay,
We moved over to voice over IP. That was the telecommunications project I mentioned.
yeah,
So everything's voice over IP now.
okay. And that just carried in that line, I just assume over the years, probably, right?
Right, the label, right?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Alderman Tenza.
Thank you. Can you just explain too, a little further? I mean, in each department's budget, we see a line for cellular phones. There's another line for cellular phones in this telecommunications.
Yeah, so there's lines in each budget for cellular lines, the cellular communications. There's different ways the city handles cell phones. One is by a stipend. So if people use their own phone, they get reimbursed for that phone. The other way that they do it is, and we actually manage the cell phones, is if people need a cell phone, we have, for the most part, we give people these old flip phones. And, if they just need a phone, we provide that. So for business use only, if they need a phone, we can provide a cellular phone. And we manage that with the vendors. And there's certain people that have a smartphone because there's a business need for that, where they need a camera or they need access to email or things like that on their particular phone. So those costs get just pushed back to each individual department.
Okay. And so if I may, Mr. Chairman, follow up.
Yes.
For the telecommunications section of the budget, the 15,000, what is that for?
On the telecommunications, well, that's for the fire vehicles,
Okay.
and it's predominantly fire. So the fire vehicles and the tablets that are for the fire marshals, that's the cellular communications for those devices.
Okay. And those are in your budget and not the
That's in our
fire
budget, yeah.
department's?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
If I can assist, from what I understand, and correct me if.
Yep.
But coming from fire, the police department ate up a lot of bandwidth. There's only so much that you can get, and so the fire department needed additional. So that portion that the fire department, where it is as critical, but, they took it from the radio transmission and put it onto the cellular.
Right.
So
They were on radio.
it basically came up to the same. So each individual MDT, mobile data unit, has a little chip in it that works somewhat like a cell, you know what I
Yep.
mean? So it's another way of getting information out there to the city, so.
Yep.
Yeah, so fairly well, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions by members of the committee? Okay. And to step back to Informational Technology 122, any further questions by members of the committee? Okay. Seeing none, we thank you for your,
Do you want to cover the CTAB budget?
the
Cable?
what budget?
Cable, that's on the list too, the cable TV.
Sure.
It's not on our agenda, and I don't know what the chair has, but if you want to give us a
Yeah, we
brief
do, I do that every year
You do
yeah,
that?
because that's under my group as well, the
Okay.
cable TV.
And looking, and I kind of wonder if why it's not on the agenda for tonight,
I thought I saw it on the, on Sue's listing sheet, but
You're gonna
that
have to
she
come
sent out.
before this committee anyway, so
Yeah.
you're available?
yeah.
What page, sir?
I actually don't have the book, so I don't have I do a
Okay, we
printout
could get that.
of just the pages I need. Again, I don't want to waste paper.
Brilliant.
Advertising fees,
What was that?
is it possibly page 301?
Yeah, don't know, I'm not sure what page it's on.
What's the top of your page say?
You have it, Ben?
Because I searched.
Is it the PEG channel?
Yeah, the PEG channel.
Yeah, that's on page 301, yep. In the pink portion.
Actually, I think it's on page 171, because I extracted the pages. Let's see. Yeah. I think it starts on page 171. Does that look right?
No, mine, 171 says street light.
Street lighting.
Oh, okay. It should say PEG access channels, funds, revenue, and appropriation detail.
Yeah, it's 301.
So on this one, the only thing that changed, the only line item that changed was other contracted services. And that is on the bottom of the page. And that is essentially the pay the contracting fees for the public channel. Access Nashua runs the public channel. And so we have an increase to them each year. But everything else stayed the same.
Is there any questions by members of the committee? Alderman Tenza.
Just ask, I mean, because I don't know, how often do we negotiate the cable franchise fees?
It's every 7 years. We start 2 years before it expires to start drafting a new one. This one expires in 9/30/2022. It was renewed in 2015. And, we're almost going to do a shorter one because one of the things that's going on within that, I know that it was brought up that, people are concerned that the costs are going to go down or what the city gets is going to go down. It's not because of people moving to streaming services, because Comcast is in the business to make money. So they're always going to be making money. And the money that we get every year has been on the rise, even though people are moving to streaming services. So the money we get from Comcast has been going up and probably will continue to go up. What is going to affect it is the federal legislation from the FCC that originally started this whole thing back in the 80s when cable TV came out and TV was brought to the house by a cable instead of antenna. That obviously is now old technology. Even what the cable comes to your house, it's coming by way of internet connections and everything else. So all the other companies are looking at is this is unfair to them. So even though you have a cable coming to your house with internet, Comcast is providing TV over that internet as it is. But then you have other streaming services, Hulu and Amazon Prime and so on and so forth, that are providing the same TV channels over the internet delivered to the house. The only one we're charging a franchise fee to is Comcast, in our case. So what you might see on the legislation is them either eliminating the franchise fee because it's not fair, or finding a way to get money from all the streaming services by way of taxation. But right now, that's still being debated. There's multiple approaches they're trying to look at. But I think it's going to have to be more along the lines of, Comcast is not really providing a true cable TV anymore. They're providing TV over an internet channel. And the same thing as all the other streaming services, but we're only charging Comcast. So that, one of the reasons why we used to have a 10-year agreement, we cut it back to 7, just because of this legislation that is coming out, anticipating that.
Alderman Clevens.
Is there anything in New Hampshire law or in the city that says we have to only have one cable provider?
No. Anybody can come in and provide cable services. All they have to do is provide the infrastructure. Right now, Comcast owns their infrastructure on the poles. Anybody can come in. It's a huge expense. So to be a competitive and dilute that market, you probably won't get a return on investment. That's probably why people don't do it. Or they could buy Comcast's infrastructure, the cable that's running on the telephone poles. But there's no law that says we can only have one.
If I could, is there anything in the contract that says we can only have one?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because I know that it's been mentioned, you know, we have very little fiber optic available to the public. I know we have some, I think, in the south end of the city, and it kind of ended, and I think that was Verizon started that, and then when Verizon left,
Right.
that was what was left over. Do you know of any companies that want to bring that type of service to Nashua, or?
Well, the next big thing is not fiber, but it's more 5G.
Okay.
So the thing that's coming down the road is providing 5G cellular-based communications for internet. So they're kind of like microsites. So rather than having these huge cell towers, they're going to come up with these smaller mesh-type networks. They're going to be able to put them on telephone poles and sides of buildings and, statues. They'll probably look ugly on a statue, but so there's also talk about cities coming up with some sort of ordinance to say what you can put them on and what you can't put them on. But we're going to start seeing those in more dense areas like Boston or New York City because they're going to get more return on their money by building out those networks. But eventually, it's going to come out to the suburbs, the 5G. So you won't even have a cable coming to your house. You'll be getting your internet through the air. You'll be getting your TV through the air. So the whole cable network will be going away eventually. So fiber, in some cases, will be not a thing of the past, but it'll actually be used to connect all these microsites.
Right. Interesting.
Alderman Tenza?
So obviously the cable franchise fees, internet and internet service providers are not included in that. Those are separately regulated
Right.
somehow. Do they pay the city any sort of fee, or it's just they pay their taxes and which probably go to the federal government, not to the local
Right. Yeah,
municipalities?
we don't get anything from, the city doesn't get anything from the internet providers,
Okay.
just for cable TV.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions by members of the board? Alderman Schmidt?
I don't mean to sound stupid, but what does PEG stand for?
Public education and government channels.
Thank you.
And further questions? Okay. And also, can the clerk record that we did discuss the PEG Access Channel Fund 2505, items 61, 71, and 81, and include that into the minutes of this meeting, and therefore cancel
Right.
any future and consider it a done deal. And thank you for bringing it up. This may have been an oversight, perhaps not, but I hope we didn't jump the gun on it, but I'm glad we were able to quickly handle it while everybody was here. Okay, any further questions by members of the board? Okay, seeing none, okay. Do I have a motion? Alderman Clemmons.
I would move to table R19-123.
Okay. There's a motion to table R19-123 to budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We have another motion before us, R19-127, that was table pending public hearing on April 2nd, 2019. It's authorizing mayor and city treasurer issue bonds not to exceed the amount of $2,800,000 for the police department heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, HVAC, and window improvements. We received no additional information on this, and it shall remain on the table. I do, we're going to get into general discussion. I do want to say, if I learned to read when I was younger, I would have read the script better. The motion to take from the table had nothing to do with the previous motion. It was to take the budget off the table. So my apologies. So anybody that had a, as us Boston people say, a conniption or something, so we're all set. So I thank you. Any other general discussion? Seeing none? Okay, public comments and remarks from the alderman? Okay, there's no reason for non-public session. Alderman Tenza. Oh, excuse me, Alderwoman Kelly. You had your hand up. Motion to adjourn. We'll call the meeting adjourned of the Budget Committee at 7:37.
Don't we have to vote on the motion to adjourn?